You are too old. You are useless. The money is mine now. My son's voice cut across the dinner table, sharp as broken glass. The silverware stilled. My fork slipped from my hand and clattered against porcelain. I stared at the spill of wine, spreading like a wound, my chest hollowing, my breath caught in silence. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Evelyn Mercer. I am 78 years old. 3 months ago, I lived in my own house. Had my greenhouse. My plants knew my voice. Then came the shoulder surgery. Simple procedure, they said. Routine. I could not lift my arms afterward. Could not water the orchids. The greenhouse grew cold. Rowan, my son, visited more often then. He brought pamphlets about assisted living. Said I needed help now. Celeste, his wife, measured my kitchen with her eyes. Spoke about square footage, market value. I sold the house. Trusted them with the money. Moved into their spare bedroom. The room had beige walls. Beige carpet. A window facing their garage. I unpacked my sweaters. Arranged my books. Tried to make it home. But I was not home. I was cargo. Celeste spoke about me in the past tense. As if I had already died. She told neighbors I had dementia. That I wandered at night. I did not wander. I lay in bed listening to them plan my disappearance. Their voices carried through thin walls. Clean, efficient, cold. Rowan worked as a city planner. He understood blueprints, permits, legal documents. Celeste designed buildings. She knew how to erase old structures. Replace them with new ones. Together, they designed my erasure. I found the folder by accident. Was looking for paper to write grocery lists. Rowan's desk drawer stuck. When it opened, papers scattered. I saw my signature on documents I never signed. My name on transfers I never authorized. Guardianship petition. Property reassignment. Investment withdrawals. All signed in my hand. But the letters slanted wrong. The loops too wide. Celeste had practiced my signature. Perfected it. Used it. I stood in that office holding proof of my own theft. The house was quiet. Rowan at work. Celeste at her firm. I photographed every page. Put the folder back exactly where I found it. That night at dinner, they spoke about vacation plans. A cruise to Alaska. Celeste mentioned the expense. Said they deserved a reward for their sacrifices. I ate my soup in silence. Watched them plan their celebration. They were spending my greenhouse money. My life's savings. My future. After dinner, I packed a suitcase. Just one. I folded my sweaters carefully. Packed my medications. My reading glasses. Left the jewelry Rowan's father gave me. Left the photo albums. Left the furniture. Took only what fit in one bag. What I could carry alone. At midnight, I opened the front door. Stepped onto the porch. The neighborhood slept around me. Perfect lawns. Perfect houses. Perfect lies. I walked barefoot to the bus stop. Shoes in one hand. Suitcase in the other. The pavement was cold. Rough against my feet. But I was not cold inside. I was burning. The night bus arrived empty. Driver nodded without curiosity. I paid my fare. Sat near the back. Watched the suburban streets slide past. Behind me, Rowan's house grew smaller. Disappeared. Ahead lay the old part of the city. Where buildings leaned against each other. Where people survived on stubbornness alone. I did not know where I would sleep. Did not know what came next. But I knew this: I would not vanish quietly. They could forge my signature. Steal my money. Call me incompetent. But they could not make me disappear. Not while I still drew breath. Not while I could still choose. The bus carried me through the darkness toward whatever came next. I was 78 years old. I was homeless. I was robbed. But I was not defeated. Not yet. The bus dropped me at 5th and Main. 4:30 in the morning. The city smelled different here. Older. Coffee. Exhaust. Something sour I could not name. I stood on the sidewalk holding my suitcase. Watched the bus disappear into darkness. Street lights flickered yellow, cast long shadows between buildings. A woman pushed a shopping cart past me. Did not look up. Did not slow down. I understood. We were both invisible now. The bank would not open for 4 hours. I needed somewhere to wait. Somewhere warm. Somewhere safe. Somewhere they would not ask questions. I walked slowly down 5th Street. Past closed storefronts. Past broken windows. My feet were cold inside my shoes. My shoulder ached from carrying the bag. But I kept walking. There. A diner. Windows glowing amber. The sign read Emma's all night. I pushed through glass doors. Bell chimed overhead. The air inside was thick with bacon grease. Coffee. Toast burning somewhere. A waitress looked up from wiping tables. Gray hair. Tired eyes like mine. She nodded toward an empty booth. Said I could sit as long as I needed. I ordered coffee. Black. Sat facing the window. Watched morning creep across the glass. Other customers came and went. Night shift workers. Taxi drivers. People with nowhere else to go. Nobody stared. Nobody whispered about the old woman with one suitcase. Here, I was ordinary. Just another person waiting for daylight. I pulled out my phone. Searched for the bank's hours. 8:30 opening. 4 hours to wait. 4 hours to plan. The coffee was bitter. Strong. It burned my tongue and cleared my head. I thought about the forged documents. About Rowan practicing my signature. About Celeste measuring my kitchen with architect's eyes. They thought I was helpless. Confused. Too old to fight back. They were wrong. At 6, the diner filled with breakfast customers. Construction workers. Nurses ending their shifts. The waitress refilled my cup without asking. Left me alone with my thoughts. I opened my purse. Counted my cash. $63. My credit cards were still good. For now. By 7, sunlight painted the windows gold. The city woke up around me. I paid for my coffee. Left a tip. Walked back onto the street. The morning air was sharp. Clean. It cut through the fog in my mind. I found the bank 3 blocks away. Harlow Bank. Red brick building with white columns. The parking lot was empty. Security guard unlocked the front doors at 8:20. I was the first customer inside. The lobby was quiet. Marble floors. High ceiling. Everything echoed. A young man in a blue suit approached. Asked how he could help. I told him I needed to see the manager. That it was urgent. He led me to a glass office. Introduced me to Simon Lark. Simon was younger than Rowan. Maybe 35. His tie was crooked. I sat across from his desk. Opened my purse. Pulled out the folder. Spread the documents across his clean surface like evidence at a trial. Simon's face changed as he read. His jaw tightened. His pen stopped moving. He asked if I had signed these papers. I told him no. He asked if I had authorized these transfers. I told him no. He asked if my son had permission to access my accounts. I told him no. Simon leaned back in his chair. Ran his hand through his hair. He told me this was fraud. That we needed to act immediately. Together, we froze Rowan's access to my accounts, revoked all standing authorizations, created new passwords, new security questions, new everything. Page by page, we uncovered the theft. Urban survey expenses that never happened. Building permits for projects that did not exist. Consulting fees paid to shell companies. My greenhouse money. My retirement savings. My funeral fund. All of it flowing into Rowan and Celeste's accounts like water through broken pipes. Simon's voice grew harder with each discovery. He spoke about criminal charges. I told him I did not want my son in prison. I just wanted my money back. My life back. My name back. Simon nodded, said he understood, that we would focus on recovery first. He printed new account statements, new routing numbers, new cards, gave me a temporary checkbook, a phone number for emergencies, promised to monitor every transaction, to call if anything looked suspicious. I thanked him, shook his hand. His grip was firm, honest. Walking out of that bank, I felt something I had not felt in months. Control. Not over everything. Not over Rowan's choices or Celeste's greed. But over my own money. My own future. My own decisions. The sun was higher now. The sidewalk warming under my feet. I had $63 in my purse. And now I had my accounts back. I had somewhere to start. But I still had nowhere to sleep. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Simon gave me a business card before I left. Said it had resources on the back. Phone numbers, addresses, places that helped people like me. I studied the card on the sidewalk outside the bank. Elder services, legal aid, housing support. The words looked official, clean, like everything else that was supposed to help. But I had learned not to trust clean things. I walked to a coffee shop 2 blocks away. Ordered tea. Sat by the window. The barista was young, maybe 20. She had purple hair and kind eyes. She did not ask why I was reading phone numbers at 10 in the morning. Did not ask about my suitcase. Did not ask anything at all. I called the first number. Elder services. Got put on hold for 12 minutes. When someone finally answered, they asked for my case number. I did not have a case number. They said they would mail me forms. Forms would take 2 weeks. I needed help today. I called legal aid. Got a recording. Office hours were Tuesday through Thursday. Today was Monday. I called housing support. The woman who answered sounded tired. She asked if I was in immediate danger. I said no. She asked if I had been evicted. I said no. She asked if I was homeless due to domestic violence. I paused. Was theft violence? Was betrayal violence? Was erasure violence? I said no. She said they had a 3-month waiting list. I hung up, stared at my reflection in the coffee shop window. Gray hair, wrinkled hands, 78 years of living, and nowhere to lay my head tonight. The barista approached my table, asked if everything was okay. I told her I was fine. She nodded but left a napkin with something written on it. A phone number. And a name, Bryony. She said Bryony helped people. That I should call. I looked at the napkin. The handwriting was careful, young, hopeful. I called the number. A woman answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm, direct. She said her name was Bryony Vale. That she worked with an elder support collective. Not a government office. Not a bureaucracy. Just people helping people. She asked where I was. I told her the coffee shop name. She said she could meet me there in an hour. That we would figure something out. I waited, ordered another tea. Watched people walk past the window. Everyone had somewhere to go. Everyone belonged somewhere. Except me. Bryony arrived exactly on time. She was maybe 50. Jeans. Flannel shirt. Work boots. She looked like someone who fixed things. Built things. Made things work. She sat across from me. Did not shake my hand. Did not smile too much. Just looked at me like I was real. Like I mattered. She asked what I needed. I told her the truth. About Rowan. About Celeste. About the forged documents and stolen money. About leaving in the middle of the night. About having nowhere to sleep. Bryony listened without interrupting. Took notes on a worn notebook. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. She said she knew a place. Temporary housing in the Arts District. A converted warehouse. Individual rooms. Shared kitchen. Safe locks. People who minded their own business. It was not fancy. Not permanent. But it was clean and it was mine. The rent was reasonable. Paid week by week. No credit check. No references. Just first week's rent and a promise not to cause trouble. I had $63 cash. The room was $40 per week. Bryony drove me there in her old pickup truck. The seat smelled like sawdust. She did not make small talk. Did not ask personal questions. Just drove through the city like she had done this before. Many times. The building was red brick. 4 stories. Fire escapes zigzagging down the sides. Inside, the hallways were narrow. The walls needed paint. The floor creaked. But the locks were solid. The windows had screens. The radiators worked. Bryony showed me to room 3B. 3rd floor. Corner unit. 2 windows. The room was small. Bed. Desk. Chair. Sink in the corner. Shared bathroom down the hall. Shared kitchen on the 2nd floor. Nothing fancy. Everything necessary. I gave Bryony $40. She gave me 2 keys. One for the room. One for the building. She said there were rules. Quiet after 10. No visitors after midnight. Clean up after yourself. Pay rent on time. Respect your neighbors. Simple rules. Fair rules. Rules I could live with. After Bryony left, I sat on the narrow bed. Looked around my new home. Sunlight slanted through dusty windows. Somewhere below, a radio played jazz. I unpacked my suitcase. Hung my clothes in the small closet. Put my medications on the desk. My reading glasses beside them. Arranged my few possessions like they were enough. Like they were home. That night, I lay in the narrow bed listening to the building settle. Footsteps in the hallway. Water running through old pipes. A door closing somewhere. The sounds of other people living their lives. Separately. Quietly. Respectfully. For the first time in months, I locked a door from the inside. For the first time in months, nobody could open that door without my permission. I was alone. But I was not erased. I was starting over. At 78. With almost nothing. But I was starting over as myself. That was something. That was enough. For now. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 3 days into my new life, I found the library. It sat on the corner of Maple and 3rd. Red brick like my building. But older. Quieter. More settled into itself. The steps were worn smooth by decades of footsteps. I added mine to them. Inside, the air smelled like old books and floor polish. Like safety. The librarian at the front desk had silver hair and gentle eyes. She did not ask why I carried a manila folder. Did not ask where I lived. Just pointed toward the computer terminals. Said I could use them free. I needed to research, to understand what had been done to me, to learn what I could do back. The computer was slow, the keyboard keys stuck, but it worked. I searched for elder financial abuse. Page after page appeared. Stories like mine. Children stealing from parents. Spouses draining accounts. Guardianship scams. Forged documents. Missing money. All of it legal until someone proved it was not. I printed articles. Took notes. Built my own education. Learned words I had never needed before. Fiduciary duty. Power of attorney fraud. Undue influence. Financial exploitation. Elder abuse. Each term was a key. Each definition unlocked another door. I was not stupid. I was not confused. I was not incompetent. I was a crime victim. And crimes had remedies. By noon, my folder was thick with information. My head buzzed with possibilities. I walked to the reference section. Found books about estate law. About protecting assets. About what to do when family steals. A woman approached me between the shelves. Maybe 60. Wire-rimmed glasses. She had been watching me read. Asked if I needed help finding something. Her name was Murray Hart. She was an attorney. Specialized in elder rights. She volunteered at the library twice a week. Helped people with legal questions. Free consultations. No appointments needed. Just show up and ask. I showed her my folder. The forged documents. The bank statements. Murray's face hardened as she read. Her pen moved quickly across a notepad. She asked the same questions Simon had asked. Got the same answers. But she asked more questions too. Deeper ones. Sharper ones. Did Rowan have medical power of attorney? No. Did Celeste have access to my financial information? Not legally. Had anyone declared me incompetent? Not officially. Had I ever given written permission for these transfers? Never. Murray explained that I had rights. Strong rights. Clear rights. But rights without action were just paper. I needed to act fast. First, a new will. The old one probably named Rowan as executor. Second, new financial powers of attorney. Someone I trusted completely. Third, advanced directives for medical decisions. Someone who would respect my wishes. Fourth, a formal complaint about the forged documents. Let lawyers handle Rowan. Murray could help with all of this. Her fees were reasonable. Payment plans available. No money up front. Just a promise to pay when able. I told her yes. To all of it. As quickly as possible. We scheduled an appointment for Thursday. Her office was downtown. Walking distance from my building. Everything was walking distance now. That evening, I sat in my room thinking about who to trust. Who should have power of attorney if I became unable to decide? Not Rowan. Never again. Not Celeste. Obviously. I thought about my sister's daughter. Corinne. She lived in Vermont. Taught music at a small college. Never asked me for money. Called on my birthday every year. Sent cards at Christmas. We were not close. But she was honest. Decent. Trustworthy. More than I could say about my own son. I called Corinne that night. Explained what had happened. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she said she was sorry. That she would help however she could. I asked if she would be my financial power of attorney. She said yes without hesitation. Said she was honored I asked. We talked for an hour. About Rowan's betrayal. About starting over. About how hard it was to trust anyone after your own child steals from you. Corinne understood. Her voice was steady, calm, real. When I hung up, I felt something I had not felt since finding the folder. Hope. Not hope that everything would be fine. Not hope that Rowan would apologize. Hope that I could build something new. Something mine. Something safe. Thursday came quickly. Murray's office was small but organized. Law books lined the walls. Certificates hung in simple frames. Everything about the place said competence. Honesty. No nonsense. We spent 2 hours going through documents. Signing new papers. Revoking old authorizations. Creating new protections. Murray explained each document before I signed it. What it did. Why I needed it. She treated me like I was intelligent. Capable. Worth protecting. When we finished, she put copies in a manila envelope. Handed it to me. She said these papers were my armor. My shield against future theft. Nobody could take them away. Nobody could forge them again. They were witnessed, notarized, filed with the state, official, legal, bulletproof. Walking home from Murray's office, I felt different. Not just protected, empowered. I was no longer just surviving what Rowan had done to me. I was building walls he could never break down again. Strong walls, legal walls, permanent walls. At 78, I was learning to be dangerous. Not dangerous like violence. Dangerous like freedom. Dangerous like a woman who knew her rights and refused to disappear. That kind of dangerous. The best kind. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 2 weeks after signing the legal papers, I discovered I was bored. Not sad. Not angry. Not frightened. Bored. I had protected my money. Secured my housing. Built my walls. But what was I protecting? What was I securing? What was I building toward? I sat in my small room every morning drinking instant coffee. Watched dust motes dance in the window light. Listened to my neighbors leave for work. Come home from work. Live their lives while I waited for mine to begin again. This was not enough. Safety was not enough. I needed purpose. I needed to matter to someone besides myself. I walked to the library. My feet knew the way now. The same silver-haired librarian sat at the front desk. Her name was Odette, I had learned. She had worked here 30 years. Odette was reading a gardening magazine. She looked up when I approached. Asked if I needed help finding something specific today. I told her I was looking for a way to be useful. She smiled, set down her magazine, studied my face. She said they always needed volunteers, especially for the children's programs. Story time on Tuesday mornings. Reading help after school. Book sorting in the basement. Shelf organizing upstairs. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that paid. But work that mattered. I asked about story time. What kind of stories did children want? Odette's eyes brightened. She said anything with animals worked well. Adventure stories. Funny stories. Stories that taught without preaching. I told her I used to be a botanist. Knew about plants. Gardens. Growing things. She leaned forward. Said they had never had science story time. Children always asked questions about bugs. Birds. Why leaves changed color. Maybe I could try that. See if anyone came. See if anyone cared. The first Tuesday, 3 children showed up. Ages 5 to 8. I had prepared carefully. Brought pictures from old textbooks. Simple drawings of how seeds grow. How flowers make nectar for bees. I sat on a small chair. The children sat on the carpet around me. Told them about oak trees that lived for centuries. About tiny seeds that could sleep in the ground for years. Waiting for the right moment to wake up and grow. The children listened, asked questions, wanted to touch the pictures. One little girl asked if people were like seeds sometimes. If they could sleep and then wake up in new places. I looked at her serious face. Her bright, curious eyes told her yes. Sometimes people were exactly like seeds. The next Tuesday, 6 children came. The Tuesday after that, 10. Word spread the way good things do. Quietly, naturally. Parents started staying to listen. Teachers recommended my sessions. The librarians printed flyers, posted them on community boards. Soon I had a regular group. 15 children who came every week. They brought friends, asked for specific topics, remembered everything. I prepared new lessons, found new pictures, learned their names. Sarah loved butterflies. Marcus wanted to know about tree roots. Emma asked why some plants grew in winter. David collected acorns. Each child became a small light in my week. A reason to wake up. After story time, I started helping with other library tasks. Sorting returned books. Cleaning shelves. Repairing torn pages. Simple work. Repetitive work. Work that kept my hands busy. Odette trained me on the computer system. Showed me how to check books in. How to search for titles. How to help patrons find what they needed. I learned the library's rhythms. Morning rush of commuters. Afternoon quiet of retirees. Evening bustle of families. Each person who came through those doors was looking for something. Information. Entertainment. Connection. Refuge. I helped them find it. One book at a time. One question at a time. One conversation at a time. The work was unpaid, unglamorous, often unnoticed. But it was mine. Chosen freely. Done willingly. Valued quietly. Nobody could take it away from me. Nobody could forge my signature on it. Nobody could steal my usefulness. My purpose. My contribution. After 6 weeks of volunteering, Odette approached me at closing time. She said the library director wanted to meet me. My story sessions were the most popular children's program they had ever run. They wanted to make it official. Put me on the volunteer recognition board. Maybe expand to weekend sessions. Summer camp programs. I felt something warm spread through my chest. Pride. Belonging. Worth. At 78, I was building something new. Not a greenhouse. Not a garden. But something that grew nonetheless. Knowledge in young minds. Curiosity in bright eyes. Wonder in small hearts. Seeds I planted would bloom long after I was gone. That evening, I called Corinne. Told her about the library. The children. How I had found work that mattered again. She sounded pleased. Said she was proud of me. Said I sounded different. Stronger. More like myself. I realized she was right. I did sound different. For months, I had spoken like a victim. Tired. Defeated. Shrinking. Now I spoke like a woman with somewhere to be. Someone expecting me. Someone counting on me. That night, I lay in my narrow bed listening to the building settle. But I was not just listening anymore. I was planning. Tomorrow I would research butterfly migration for Sarah. Find a book about tree roots for Marcus. Prepare answers for the questions I knew would come. I had work to do. Purpose to fulfill. Lives to touch. Small lives. Young lives. Lives that still believed in growing. They reminded me what I had almost forgotten. That it is never too late to bloom again. Even at 78. Even after betrayal. Even after loss. Especially then. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The first letter arrived on a Thursday. 3 weeks after I started volunteering. I recognized Celeste's handwriting immediately. Neat, controlled, architectural. The envelope was cream-colored. Expensive paper. My name written in careful script. I held it in my hands for a long time. Felt its weight. Inside was probably an apology. Or an explanation. Or a demand. I set it on my small desk. Unopened. The next day, another letter came. This one from Rowan. His handwriting was messier. More urgent. The envelope cheaper. I placed it next to Celeste's letter. Still unopened. By the end of the week, I had 4 letters. All unopened. They sat on my desk like accusers. Like ghosts demanding attention. The woman in the room next to mine knocked on my door. Her name was Ruth. She was maybe 60. Worked nights at the hospital. She asked if I was okay. Said she heard me pacing. I told her I was fine. She nodded but did not look convinced. That weekend, I sat in the shared kitchen. Stared at the letters. Other residents came and went. Made coffee. Heated soup. Minded their business. Nobody asked about the unopened mail. Everyone had their own ghosts. Finally, I opened Celeste's letter first. The paper was thick between my fingers. The writing flowed like water. She was concerned about me. Worried about my mental state. Said I had left without explanation. Without saying goodbye. The neighbors were asking questions. It looked odd. Inconsiderate. She hoped we could resolve this misunderstanding. Work things out. For the sake of the family. For appearances. No mention of forged documents. No mention of stolen money. No mention of the truth at all. I folded the letter carefully. Put it back in its envelope. Opened Rowan's next. His tone was different. Harder. More direct. He said I was being unreasonable. Acting out of emotion. That I needed to come home. Sign the papers properly this time. Make everything legal. Clean. Official. He would give me a small allowance. Enough for my needs. But the bulk of the money should stay with him. For management. For my own protection. For my own good. He was my son. He knew what was best. I read that line twice. 3 times. He knew what was best. At 78, I was still being told what was best for me. By the person who had stolen from me. Lied to me. Erased me. I folded Rowan's letter. Set it aside. The 3rd letter was from both of them. Co-signed. They had consulted an attorney. My behavior was concerning. Leaving without notice. Refusing contact. Acting irrationally. They might need to seek guardianship. For my own protection. They had medical records from my surgery. Evidence of confusion. Witnesses to my declining state. Documentation. Unless I came home immediately. Voluntarily. And signed the corrected documents. The proper transfers. I felt my chest tighten. My hands shake slightly. They were threatening me. Legally. Professionally. Coldly. But I was not the same woman who had left their house. I had learned words now. Rights. Resources. Allies. I had Murray's business card in my wallet. Simon's direct phone number programmed in my phone. I was no longer helpless. No longer isolated. No longer afraid. The 4th letter was shorter. From Rowan alone. 3 words: we need money. Then several lines explaining their financial difficulties. The mortgage was high. Celeste's business was slow. They had counted on my contribution. Made plans. Committed funds. Without my money, they might lose the house. Their security. Everything they had worked for. Everything they deserved. I stared at those words. Everything they deserved. What did I deserve? What had I worked for? 60 years of teaching. researching, building a career, a lifetime of saving, planning, being responsible, a greenhouse full of plants I had nurtured for decades, a house I had maintained, improved, called home, all of it gone, transferred, spent on their cruise to Alaska, their restaurants, their convenience, their comfort, and now they needed more. I walked to the kitchen, found matches in the drawer, carried the letters to the fire escape, stepped outside. The air was cold, sharp. It cleared my mind completely. I lit the first letter, watched Celeste's concern burn to ash. Lit the second, watched Rowan's demands curl and blacken. Lit the third, watched their threats dissolve into smoke. Lit the fourth, watched their needs disappear into nothing. The wind scattered the ashes across the city. Gone, forgotten, just like they wanted me to be. But I was still here, still breathing, still choosing. Back in my room, I pulled out a piece of paper. Wrote my own letter, short, clear, final. I told them I would not be returning, would not be signing anything, would not be providing money, or explanations, or forgiveness. My attorney would handle all future communication. Any attempt at guardianship would be fought. Publicly, aggressively. I had documentation of their fraud, witnesses to their theft, evidence of their lies, proof of their greed. They should stay away, leave me alone, move on with their lives. Without my money, without my presence, without me. I signed the letter with my real signature, the one only I could make. Walked to the post office, bought a stamp, mailed it immediately. That night, I slept better than I had in months. I had drawn my line, built my boundary, spoken my truth. At 78, I had learned to say no. To my own son, to his wife, to their demands, to their version of what my life should be. No was a complete sentence, a perfect answer, a final word, and I was done explaining myself to people who had never listened anyway. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 2 months passed without another letter, without phone calls, without threats. The silence felt like freedom, like space to breathe. My life settled into rhythms. Tuesday story time, Thursday book sorting, weekend research for new lessons, evening tea in my small room. Simple rhythms, chosen rhythms, mine. I was shelving children's books on a Wednesday afternoon when he appeared. Tall, 20-something, dark hair falling across his forehead. He stood in the doorway of the children's section. Uncertain, nervous. I knew that face, those eyes, that hesitant smile. Lucian, my grandson, Rowan's son. I had not seen him in over a year. He had grown taller, his shoulders broader, his face more serious, more like his grandfather's, nothing like his father's. He saw me notice him, raised his hand in a small wave, approached slowly, like I might disappear if he moved too fast. I set down the books I was holding, waited. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to run. He said he had been looking for me, that it took weeks to find me. Asked if we could talk, if I had time, if I would listen. I nodded toward 2 chairs in the corner. Children's chairs, too small for adults. But we sat anyway, knees bent high, looking ridiculous. He started talking quickly, words tumbling out like water through a dam. He said he did not know about the money, the forged documents, the theft. Not until after I left. Not until the fighting started. His parents fought every night now. About money, about lawyers, about me, about what the neighbors would think, what the family would say. Celeste blamed Rowan for being too obvious, too careless. Rowan blamed Celeste for pushing too hard, too fast. Both of them blamed me for running away, for causing problems, for making them look bad, for being ungrateful. Lucian had heard enough, asked questions, demanded answers, found documents they had not hidden well. Bank statements, legal papers, saw my real signature next to Celeste's forgeries. Side by side, different slant, different loops, obviously different. He confronted his father, asked how he could steal from his own mother. Rowan told him it was not stealing. It was management, protection, that I was old, confused, unable to handle money properly, that they were doing what was best, what was necessary. Lucian did not believe him, could not accept it, would not stay silent. The fights got worse, louder, meaner. His parents wanted him to choose sides, to support them, to condemn me. He refused, left for college early, moved into the dorms, used his art supplies money to hire a private detective, found me through the library volunteer records, through Odette's recommendations. I listened without interrupting, watched his face as he spoke, saw genuine pain there, real confusion, honest shame. He was not his father. Not yet. Maybe not ever. When he finished talking, the library was quiet around us. Other patrons had gone home. Odette was closing the front desk. We sat in those tiny chairs like conspirators, like allies. I told him I was glad he found me, glad he knew the truth. But I could not go back, would not reconcile, could not pretend. What his parents had done was not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. It was calculated theft, planned betrayal, deliberate erasure. There was no coming back from that. No forgiveness large enough. Lucian nodded, said he understood, that he was not asking me to forgive, just asking if he could visit sometimes, if we could know each other. Not as Rowan's mother and Rowan's son, but as ourselves, grandmother and grandson, two people who happened to be related. I studied his face, those earnest eyes, that hopeful expression. He looked so much like his grandfather had at that age. Before life taught him to choose money over love, status over truth. I told him yes, he could visit, if he came as himself. Not as their messenger, not as their spy, not as their representative, just as Lucian, art student, question asker, truth seeker. His smile was radiant, relieved, real. He asked about my story time, about the children, about my new life. I told him about Sarah and her butterflies, Marcus and his tree roots, about the converted warehouse, the shared kitchen, the safe locks, about starting over with almost nothing, building something entirely mine. He listened like his grandfather used to, completely, without judgment, asked intelligent questions, made thoughtful observations, cared genuinely. When the library closed, we walked outside together. The evening air was cool, clear, full of possibility. He said he would like to come to Storytime sometime. Maybe bring his sketchbook, draw the children listening, capture their wonder, their curiosity, their joy in learning. I told him the children would love that, would love meeting a real artist, someone who saw beauty in ordinary moments, magic in simple things. We reached the corner where our paths divided. His back to campus, mine back to the warehouse district, back to my small room. He hugged me goodbye, a real hug, warm, strong, honest. Said he would call before his next visit, that he understood about boundaries, about respecting my space, my choices. my independence. Walking home that night, I felt something I had not expected to feel. Hope for the future. Not just my future, our future. Maybe family did not have to be about blood, about obligation. Maybe it could be about choice, about respect, about showing up. Lucian had chosen to find me, to hear the truth, to build something new, not to repair what was broken, but to plant something fresh, something honest, something real, something worth growing. At 78, I was learning that it was never too late to be surprised, to be disappointed, to be hurt, but also never too late to be chosen, to be seen, to be loved by the right people, in the right way, for the right reasons, even if those people were fewer than I had once hoped. Quality over quantity, truth over comfort, choice over obligation. These were lessons worth learning. At any age, especially mine. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The letter came on a Monday. Not handwritten this time. Official letterhead. Law firm stationery. Legal language in cold type. Pearson, McKnight and Associates. Attorneys at law. I recognized the name. Murray had mentioned them before. They specialized in guardianship cases, elder disputes, family conflicts, expensive lawyers, ruthless lawyers, effective lawyers. I sat in my room holding the letter, my hands perfectly steady. This was what I had been expecting, what I had prepared for. The letter was 3 pages long, dense with legal terms, but the message was simple, clear, threatening. Rowan and Celeste were petitioning for emergency guardianship. They had medical evidence, psychiatric evaluations, witness statements, all proving I was incompetent, delusional, unable to care for myself. I had abandoned my home, isolated myself, made irrational financial decisions, refused family support, rejected reasonable help, exhibited paranoid behavior. A hearing was scheduled. 2 weeks from today, I was required to appear, with legal representation, to defend my competency. If I failed to appear, the guardianship would be granted by default. All my assets would be transferred. All my decisions would require approval. I would lose my independence, my freedom, my right to choose. Everything I had fought for, everything I had rebuilt, everything I was. I folded the letter carefully, set it on my desk, picked up my phone, called Murray. Her secretary said she was in court, would call back by evening. I waited, made tea, organized my papers, stayed calm. Murray called at 6. I read her the letter word for word. Her voice grew harder with each paragraph. More determined. She said she had been expecting this. Had prepared for this possibility. We had built strong defenses. Multiple layers of protection. Medical records from my surgery. Bank statements showing clear thinking. Documentation of the fraud. Evidence of their theft. Proof of my competency. But we needed more. We needed witnesses, character testimony, community support, people who could speak to my current state, my independence, my capability. I thought about Odette, Simon, Bryony, the parents of my storytime children, people who saw me regularly, who knew me now, not who I used to be. Murray said she would file a counter petition, challenge their evidence. Demand psychiatric evaluations of the accusers. Examine their motives. Expose the financial fraud. Make it public. Make them defend their theft. She asked if I was ready for a fight. A real fight. A public fight. I told her yes. I was ready. I had been ready since the night I left. The next 2 weeks passed like a fever dream. Preparation, documentation, strategy. Murray worked 18-hour days. Filed motions, gathered evidence, built cases. I gave depositions, answered questions, submitted to evaluations, met with psychiatrists who tested my memory, my reasoning, my judgment. All of them concluded the same thing. I was competent, clear, independent, capable of making my own decisions, managing my own affairs, living my own life. Meanwhile, Rowan and Celeste hired investigators, dug through my past, questioned my neighbors at the warehouse, asked about my habits, tried to find evidence of confusion, instability, incompetence. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. The hearing was scheduled for Tuesday morning. Downtown courthouse. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding, known for being fair but thorough. I dressed carefully that morning. My best suit, modest jewelry, neat hair. I wanted to look competent, stable, reliable, in control. Murray met me at the courthouse steps. Briefcase full of evidence. She said we were ready. Our case was strong, our witnesses credible, but she warned me it would be ugly, personal, painful. They would attack my character, my choices, my mental state, would try to make me seem crazy, confused, dangerous to myself. I told her I understood, that I had lived through worse, that I was not the woman who had fled in the night anymore. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, high windows. Rowan and Celeste sat at one table, their lawyer between them. They did not look at me when I entered, did not acknowledge me. I was not their mother anymore, not their family. I was their opponent, their obstacle, their problem to solve. Judge Morrison called the court to order. Read the petition aloud. The accusations sounded terrible in that formal setting. Damning. But they were still lies. Still fiction. Still desperate attempts at control. Rowan's lawyer went first. Painted me as a tragic figure. Elderly. Confused. Vulnerable. Unable to recognize my own decline. He presented medical records from my surgery. Talked about post-operative confusion. Mentioned my sudden departure. My isolation. My refusal to communicate. Called witnesses who testified about my strange behavior. My paranoid accusations. All of them Rowan and Celeste's friends. None of them recent observers. When it was Murray's turn, she stood slowly, deliberately, looked directly at the judge, spoke clearly, confidently. She said this case was not about competency. It was about theft, about adult children who had forged documents, stolen money, erased their mother, who were now using the court system to cover their crimes. She presented bank records, signature analyses, legal documents, called Simon from the bank, who testified about the forgeries, called Odette from the library, who spoke about my volunteer work, called Dr. Richardson, who had evaluated me the week before. All of them said the same thing. I was competent, independent, capable. The hearing lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of testimony, evidence, arguments. When it ended, Judge Morrison said she would rule within a week. That she needed time to review all the evidence, consider all testimony, make a decision that would affect the rest of my life. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt empty, drained, strangely peaceful. I had told my truth, presented my evidence, made my stand. Whatever happened next was beyond my control, out of my hands. But I had not given up, had not surrendered, had not disappeared. At 78, I had learned to fight for myself. Even against my own son. Even in public. Even when it hurt. Some battles are worth fighting. Some principles worth defending. Some lives worth living on your own terms. No matter what the cost.